Welcome. In this film, we'll examine some leading causes of work-related falls on stairs. We'll also consider precautions that can prevent many of these falls. Illustrated transcripts of this film are available on Kansas State University's Gen Ag 712 course website and through a link provided on our YouTube channel. Falls on stairs comprise one example of falls from elevations, also known as falls to lower levels. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, about 18,000 workers suffer lost time injuries each year from stairway falls in American workplaces. In this film, we'll examine 4 important causes of workplace falls on stairs. First, researchers have found that falls often occur on stairways that are poorly designed. Second, inadequate lighting contributes to many falls on stairs. Third, falls often happen when stairs are deteriorated from lack of maintenance, cluttered from careless housekeeping, or slick from foreign substances such as granules, powders, liquids, and ice. Fourth, falls on stairs are especially likely when workers are engaged in certain activities such as walking while distracted, carrying materials, hurrying, and not using handrails. To illustrate the human consequences of falls on stairs, let's consider an actual injury that was reported by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA. A worker was walking down a flight of wooden stairs with her hands full of linens. There were no handrails, and the stairs were not evenly spaced. Specifically, the width of the stair treads varied from front to back. This front-to-back distance is called the run. The height of the steps also varied. Stair height is known as the rise. The worker misstepped on the badly designed stairs, and she fell about 7 feet to the floor below. The worker was hospitalized and had to undergo surgery with broken bones in her left wrist, right shoulder, and right leg. She also suffered injuries to her face. This incident illustrates the significance of the first major cause of falls that we'll explore in this film: poorly designed stairways. Researchers such as John Arkia, Hisao Nagata, and scientists at the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics have found that falls are common on stairways that have certain design flaws. For instance, this stairway is hazardous because it lacks handrails. Many standards exist to help builders create safer stairs. As an example, American employers must consider OSHA requirements for stairway design, including the walking and working surfaces regulations for general industry and the stairway regulations for construction and marine terminals. Most new stairways in U.S. workplaces must also be designed so they are accessible according to the Americans with Disabilities Act. Finally, stairway designers must consider building codes such as the International Building Code and others that may be adopted as law by state and local government agencies. Although details vary, most design standards require stairways to have handrails so users can steady themselves on the steps. In addition, Level landings are usually required at the top and bottom of each stairway. Landings give people room to move safely through doors and to other sections of the walkway. The height or rise of the treads should also be appropriate and uniform to help prevent missteps. In fact, the injury we examined a moment ago might have been prevented if the treads had been more evenly spaced. Stair treads should also have an appropriate and uniform run, which is the distance from front to back. Again, uniformity helps people adjust their stride, reducing the risk of missteps. Handrails should be located a standard distance above the stair treads, and this distance should be uniform along the stairway. Design standards specify many other requirements. The elements we've examined represent only a few of the more common issues. Let's shift our attention now to the next important cause of stairway falls that we'll consider: lighting. Some researchers, including John Archaea and scientists at the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, have found that falls often happen when stairs are poorly illuminated. To illustrate the potential human impact of poor lighting, let's consider a report of another injury that was investigated by OSHA. 2 workers were on the roof of an apartment complex on a June day. They entered the building through a door that led into a dark, unlit stairway. One of the workers tried to reach for the stair railing in the dark. Unable to see, he accidentally walked into the stair opening and fell to the bottom. Emergency responders took him to a medical center, and he was hospitalized for a concussion and other injuries that he suffered during the fall. To prevent serious injuries, stairs must have good lighting, including artificial lights with switches or motion sensors at every level where people may enter the stairway. If switches or motion sensors are not desired, the lights can be wired so the bulbs are always turned on. Unfortunately, building codes have not established consistent requirements for illumination. We can begin to understand the complexity of this issue by considering a few examples. Here, we see a stairway that is very poorly lit, with less than half a foot candle of illumination. Building codes and lighting standards vary in their requirements. However, this lighting is so dim that except in theaters, it would not meet the minimum requirements of most codes used in the U.S. today. Next, we see a stairway with about 1 foot candle of illumination. Some building codes do allow stairway lighting to be as low as 1 foot candle. However, newer standards tend to require more light. This stairway has about 10 foot candles of illumination. Some newer standards in the U.S. are beginning to require at least 10 foot candles for stairs in new construction. The most stringent recommendations call for even brighter lighting, in the range of 20 foot candles or even more, especially for stairs used by older persons who may have impaired eyesight. To illustrate principles of good lighting, let's consider these well-lit stairs. Looking up, we see that natural lighting is provided by windows during the day. We also see artificial lighting from fluorescent fixtures. A light meter can help us verify that the stairway is well lit. Techniques for measuring illumination vary according to the purposes of measurement. Since we want to know if there is enough light to walk safely on the steps, we'll place the light meter sensor directly on the stair treads. During the day, illumination on a sample of the stair treads averages about 20 foot candles. During daytime then, this stairway will meet or exceed the minimum illumination required by most American lighting standards in the year 2012. Next, we'll measure illumination on these same steps at night. This will tell us whether the fluorescent fixtures provide enough lighting after sundown when the windows are dark. We see that at night, the fluorescent lighting provides about 19 foot candles of illumination, which still meets or exceeds the requirements of all but the most stringent of recommendations for new construction. The next major category of fall hazards we'll examine includes falls caused by poor maintenance, clutter, and slick substances on stairs. Researchers such as John Archaea and scientists at the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics have found that falls may occur when stairs are deteriorated due to age, wear, or inadequate maintenance. In the most extreme cases, deteriorated wooden or metal stairs may collapse under the weight of users. Collapse may also occur if temporary stairs are not properly anchored at construction sites. In less extreme cases, workers may fall when they trip on irregularities in the tread, such as the broken concrete we see in this example. To avoid these problems, stairways should be periodically inspected and repairs should be made when needed. Besides keeping stairs in good repair, it is important to keep them free of clutter that could cause workers to trip. Cluttered stairs contribute to many falls, as confirmed by researchers such as D.P. Manning, John Archaea, and scientists at the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. To illustrate, let's consider an actual injury reported by OSHA. According to the report, a woman was walking downstairs at work. Construction workers had left a section of conduit on the steps. The woman stumbled on the conduit and fell. The fall broke her arm and she had to be hospitalized for treatment. To help prevent injuries, it is important to keep stairs free of clutter. As a final example of falls caused by maintenance, housekeeping, and foreign substances, let's consider the problem of slippery steps. Research conducted by Tim Bentley, D.P. Manning, Leif Svanstrom, John Archaea, and the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics has found that falls are likely when stairs are slick from water, snow and ice, and other slippery substances such as grain in agriculture, flour in food manufacturing, and mud or sand. An injury reported by OSHA illustrates the potentially serious consequences of falls on slippery stairs. A worker was climbing steps to make a delivery at a customer's home. It was winter and the steps were covered with ice. Also, there were no handrails on the stairs. The worker slipped on the ice and fell, seriously injuring his knee and back. His injuries required hospitalization and emergency surgery. We can prevent serious injuries such as this by keeping steps free of snow, ice, mud, liquids, and other slippery substances. As a final category of causes, let's consider how stair users' own activities may contribute to falls. First, researchers such as John Archaea and scientists at the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics have found that falls on stairs often happen when workers are carrying objects. Large loads are hazardous because they keep us from seeing where we are walking. Heavy or awkward loads may cause us to lose our balance. Loads that require both hands are risky because they keep us from using the handrails. To illustrate, let's consider the details of another OSHA injury report. A worker was beginning to walk down a flight of stairs. Her hands were full of papers and other materials, so she was not holding the railing. As she took the first step, her foot missed the stair tread. Since she was not holding the railing, she was unable to catch herself, and she fell down the stairs to the landing 13 feet below. During the fall, she hit her head and lost consciousness. She never recovered, and she died in the hospital 8 days later. To prevent injuries, stairway users should not carry loads that interfere with holding the handrails. Instead, it is safer to use elevators when moving large loads between floors. Another activity that the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics has linked to injuries on stairways is a failure to use handrails even when loads are not being carried. By using handrails, workers can steady themselves and reduce the severity of injuries when slips and trips do occur. Another risky activity is using stairways while distracted, as verified by researchers such as John Archaea and scientists at the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is illustrated in an incident reported by OSHA. A worker was walking down a flight of stairs after work, and she began looking for her identification card. While distracted with her search, she tripped and fell down the rest of the stairs. The fall broke her ankle, and she was hospitalized for surgery. Sometimes other people are a source of distractions on stairs. For instance, OSHA reported the case of a worker who was leaving the home of a customer after fixing a furnace. The customer spoke while the worker was walking down the stairs. As the worker turned around to respond, he misstepped and fell to the bottom. He was killed when he struck his head during the fall. When distracting activities demand our attention, it is important to stop and wait for the distraction to pass before proceeding any further on the stairway. As a final example of risky activities, Hisao Nagata and scientists at the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics have found that falls are common when workers are rushing on stairways. Hurried behaviors include running on stairs and jumping over several steps at once. We've considered a lot of information, so let's review. Stairways must be designed properly, otherwise the risk of falls will be high. For instance, Level landings should be provided so workers have room to safely enter doors and walkways at the tops and bottoms of stairs. Handrails at appropriate heights will help workers steady themselves on the stairway. To prevent misstepping, the heights of all risers should be appropriate and uniform. Missteps can also be minimized with consistent and appropriate runs on stair treads. To further reduce the risk of falls, stairways must be properly illuminated. Natural lighting from windows may contribute to illumination during the day. However, adequate artificial lighting must also be provided. Building codes have not established consistent requirements for illumination. Although some standards allow illumination levels of 1 foot candle or less, the trend for newer standards is to require more light, typically about 10-foot candles for general use stairways and up to 20-foot candles or even more when stairs are used frequently by older populations. To keep workers from being forced to use stairs in the dark, light switches or motion sensors should be located at every landing where people may enter the stairway. Alternatively, lights can be wired so they are always on, thus making switches unnecessary. Other important considerations include maintenance, housekeeping, and the presence of foreign substances. For instance, workers may trip on the broken surfaces of stairs that are in bad repair. Clutter can also cause tripping. Falls are common as well, where stairways are slick due to ice, snow, liquids, and other slippery materials. To prevent falls, we must keep stairways well maintained, uncluttered, clean, and dry. Our final category of hazards consists of activities that lead to injuries on stairways. For instance, falls are common when workers use stairs while both hands are full. We can prevent these falls by moving large or heavy objects on elevators. Failure to use handrails is another common behavior associated with falls. Handrails help workers steady themselves, thereby limiting the severity of injuries when slips and trips do occur. Researchers have found that falls are also likely when workers' attention is absorbed by activities and by interactions with other people. We can prevent these falls if we stop moving until the distractions have passed. Rushing on stairs is a final example of fall-prone behavior. Falls are less likely when we move at a normal pace and hold the handrails. This has been a brief overview of causes and preventive measures for stairway falls in workplaces. More information is available on the websites of government safety and health organizations.